So welcome back to Windows Server and Active Directory Part 2. Here we are going to talk about the other objects that are installed by Active Directory during the initial installation of Active Directory. The first container that we checked is called the built-in container, which contains a number of domain local security groups. Each of these groups is created to allow users in your organization to carry out the roles that that group is allowed to do. For example, if you make a user a member of the administrators group, and to make him a member, all you have to do is double click the administrators group, go to the members tab, and then click on add. Now you can actually find the user that you want to add to this group by clicking on the advanced tab, clicking on find now, and this will show you all the user objects and group objects in your Active Directory. So if I want to make a user called SPAdmin or SPFarm or student1 a member of the administrators group, all I have to do is select one or more. If you want to select more than one, you hold down the shift key and you can select multiple users. If you only want to select one, you just click on that user and then click OK. So what did we just do? We added a user named student1 as a member of the administrators domain local security group. By doing this, that user will be able to have complete and unrestricted access to the entire domain contoso.com. All right, that was step one. Now, if I want to make another user a member of the backup operators group, I need to have created the user accounts to give them this permission. So step 2 is going to be learning how to create user objects. And the recommended way of creating user objects is by going to the domain, then you select the user's container, and you typically create user accounts inside the user's container. So in order to create a user account, you go to Active Directory users and computers. You select or connect to your domain where you want to create the user object. Then you select the user's container. You right click the user's container, you select new, and you select user. Now you type in the name, because this is going to be a person that's going to be backing up my Active Directory or backing up other parts of my server. I'm going to call this account a backup user. All right. And the logon name. So what information do you need to create a user object in Active Directory? You need a first name, a last name, and a full name. But as in this example, if the user account is going to be like a service account or a generic account, not a real user, because backup user is not anybody's name. It's going to be a generic account that I'm going to use to allow people to back up Active Directory or the Windows Server or other parts of my Active Directory domain. Go next. And all I now need is the password. So I'm going to put in a secure password. I'm going to repeat it twice. Now you have four options. The first option is user must change password at next log on, which is normally recommended if this is a user that is actually going to log in. Notice that this is not a user who's going to log in because this is a generic service account. That's why we uncheck the box. Now, what are the other options are? User cannot change password. Password never expires. An account is disabled. As a best practice, if this account is not going to be used for a day, a week, or a month, recommendation is to disable the account. If this is going to be a service account and you don't want anybody to change the password for this account, as a best practice, you should put user cannot change password and also that this password never expires. So that's it. All that we did was we created a user object, name is backup user, and if I want to check, I just double click on the user and I go to the account tab, and there it is. That's the logon name. This at contoso.com is called the UPN or user principal name for this object backup user. So this user can log in to my domain using one of the following methods. First method is typing logon name backup user at contoso.com, or second method is, this was pre-Windows 2000, where you type the domain name first, which is contoso backslash the username, which is backup user. Either way, the user can log in to the domain. After this, the user would still be required to type in the password. Now, notice that the account options that we saw earlier are all available here in the account tab of the properties of this user. In addition to the 4 options we saw earlier, now you can see we have more options. One of the first options is log on hours. So we can allow this account to log into our domain 24/7, 365, which is the default, or we can restrict the logon hours for this user by doing the following. First of all, we would click on logon denied. So now the user cannot log in, period. Because as you can see, the whole screen went white and it's the logon denied box is selected. If you want to allow this user to log in, let's say from Monday to Friday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., then you select that and click log on permitted. Now this is 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. So I still need to add one more hour, which I just did. So now this user can log in from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Okay, Monday to Friday. Second option is the computers to which this user can log in. If you click on this log on to button, you can now restrict this user to a specific computer, and to do that you just click on the following computers, type the computer name and click add. If you do not want to restrict the user, if you want to allow the user to log on to all the computers in this domain, then you select that option. So you have two options: allow the user to log on to all computers or only the following computers. I'm not going to restrict this user because I want this user to be able to back up data on any computer in the domain. Therefore, no restrictions. The other thing is logon hours. I showed you how to restrict the logon hours, but this is a backup user account. I cannot have this account be restricted. So to remove all restrictions and allow this account to log in at all hours, I go back to that logon hours. I select everything and I click log on permitted. Now the user can log in 24/7, 365. The other options for this account are, if the account is locked, I can come here and unlock the account. Here is the option: the user must change password at next log on. Then the user cannot change password. Password never expires. This is a very important option. Store password using reversible encryption. This option will actually remove the encryption on the password. This should not be used unless you have an application which you need to access, and the application that this account is going to access cannot read encrypted passwords. That's the only time you would check the box. But please note, when you do that, the password will now be saved in plain text, and anybody who gets access to Active Directory will be able to read your password. Therefore, not recommended, and please do not check the box unless you have to. Next box is to disable the account. Next option is if you're going to use smart cards for interactive logon. Next is account is sensitive and cannot be delegated. What that means is that we do not want to use this specific account for delegation, and we'll cover that in depth in the next series of videos. So I'm going to stop here for this particular presentation and click apply, click OK. So I've created the backup user account. Now I'm going to give permissions to this account. In order to give permissions to this account, I'm going back to the built-in. The built-in again is a object that is created by default when you install Active Directory. I'm going to go to the backup operators domain local security group, double click it, go to the members tab, add, and this time I know the name, so I don't need to go to advanced and find. I'm just going to type it, and you don't need to know the full name, just a few alphabets from the name, and there it has found it. So whenever you type in a few letters like I did and then click on check names, it'll either bring up the account if it exists. If there are multiple objects with the same name, it'll show you all of them, and then you pick the one you want or all of them and then click OK. So now I have created a user called backup user in the domain contoso.com, and I have given the user permission to be a member of the domain local security group backup operators. So this account can now back up files, folders, and resources on this Active Directory domain contoso.com. Here is the definition. Backup operators can override security restrictions for the sole purpose of backing up or restoring files. Be aware, therefore, that this members of this group can have unlimited access to your entire domain and all objects in it. So be very careful as to which users or accounts you add as members to this group. Okay, that's it for this presentation. We will start the next one after this. Thank you.